Hello and welcome to In the Spotlight with Quocirca, the definitive podcast on digital disruption in the print industry. I'm Louella Director of Quocirca, and today I'm joined by Deena LaMarque Piquion, CMO of Xerox. Today we'll be discussing the challenges and opportunities of having a global iconic brand and hearing more about how Xerox is transforming and reinventing its business. So welcome to the show, Deena. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Louella. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'm really looking forward to this conversation because we're going to get an opportunity to really discuss the kind of rich brand history behind Xerox. But before we get on to that, could you maybe tell us a bit about your role at Xerox and your career history?
Sure thing. So thanks again for having me on. And currently I serve as the CMO for Xerox globally. So lead the global marketing organization, which includes product marketing, field marketing, and our marketing centers of excellence, supporting the entire enterprise and enabling us for growth and brand recognition in the market. Prior to being appointed CMO, I led the Latin America go-to-market operations for Xerox. And I joined Xerox in 2019 after having spent 19 years at Tech Data, a global IT distributor, at the center of pretty much all of the brands that you and your colleagues follow in the industry. So it was a great preparation for coming over to Xerox and leading the brand here.
Yeah, brilliant. So it's actually perfect timing for this podcast because it's recently been I think it's 84th anniversary of when Chester Carlson produced the first electrophotographic image. And this then became the precursor to the first Xerox copier machine, which I think was introduced in 1959. And, that really, at that point, revolutionized how documents were produced and shared and distributed and was really key to the information age at that time. We will get onto a bit more, around Xerox's brand history. But, I think Xerox now is 116 years old and really has this rich brand history of innovation. So could you tell us a bit more about what brand means to you and for Xerox as a company?
You nailed it. It's great timing for this podcast, but 116 years of a legacy of a brand, right? What does brand really mean? It's so much more than the products or services that a company can sell. It's the purpose, right? The promise of value that you associate with a company's name and history. And it's why people choose to either work with you or buy from you, trust you. And, I think about my own experience with brands and some of my favorite brands, right? If I think about a B2C brand that I love, that's just nailed everything from its purpose, its messaging, the way it interacts with customers from an email marketing perspective, from an unveiling and packaging perspective, it's Native. I love Native. I'm very into health and wellness. And Native started in the market to solve the gap for deodorants that didn't have aluminum or parabens or, any of these chemicals, toxic chemicals that we all put on our pores, right? And they've been able to just really crystallize their purpose with this tagline that they include on a card in every package they send you, which is take care of your body. It's the one place you have to live, right? And I just love that clarity and purpose. And then they've been able to diversify into so many other products, sunscreens and face products and all kinds of other things, all with the same purpose of delivering health and wellness. If you think about a B2B perspective, one of my favorite, B2B brands is Microsoft. And it's because of the refresh it's gone through. And, they also had a long history and full of challenges and ups and downs, but they've gone through a refresh that has really been led by a refocus on the customer and customer obsession and what that means to how they need to change internally and externally to be relevant and fresh for the coming years. So a company brand and a personal brand align so well together, right? You know, as an employee, as a leader of a company, your own personal values, your own, you know, leadership values, your work ethic, your work style have to align to the company that you choose to spend your time with. And Xerox's core values have always guided everything that they've done from a legacy perspective, and will continue to guide for the next 100 years. Xerox has been a global corporate citizen dedicated to making the world better, right? Making work better, innovating to make work better, to make people's lives easier, more productive, more efficient in the workplace, but also giving back to the communities that it serves in a way that I think is really unique. The history of diversity and inclusion here is so strong, and it's way before it was a buzzword and, you know, expected of companies these days, way before there were metrics that, you know, measured ESG and all these other impacts that we're now starting to measure brands on. And one of the ways that we in marketing have, you know, decided to help honor that legacy is we created a timeline asset, which we'll be releasing in the market soon, and you'll be able to see on our social media platforms, which really goes through that rich history. It started back with the founder, Joe Wilson, who was a pioneer in the civil rights movement. He hired Black employees at Xerox. We had Black employee resource groups, you know, way before many other companies did. And he actually set a rule inside Xerox, or actually we set a rule in his honor and in his legacy, which requires minorities and women to be among the final pool of candidates interviewed for any management position in the US. So it's not just saying that this is important to you, it's proving that it's important to you and really making it part of the culture. One of the other things that really attracted me to this brand was the legacy of female leadership. We had a female CEO, Anne Mulcahy, in 2001. It's not very common in our industry, especially at that time, to see female CEOs. And Ursula Burns was the first African American and also a woman to become chairperson in 2010. So this history now lives on in the brand and will forever live on in the brand. We have employee resource groups, 10 of them today. Actually, we just launched our most recent one, which is called Enable All, and it's to involve people with all kinds of abilities, whether, hidden disabilities or visible disabilities, or abled people who are champions and allies of people with disabilities. So, this to me is one of those unique brand promises from Xerox, is that the corporate citizen that you expect us to be, we have always been, and we will continue to be.
Yeah, so that's great insight into how brand innovation really encompasses many areas beyond technology, such as people and culture. And we also believe that sustainability plays a key role in driving innovation for businesses. Can you tell us a bit about how Xerox is approaching sustainability, because it has been one of the pioneers in the circular economy?
Absolutely. And, sustainability has become table stakes today, right? I mean, it's no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. And it's something that's been weaved in to the innovation at Xerox for years. We recently fast tracked our net zero goal by 10 years to 2040 and offset nearly 200 million pounds of carbon dioxide through print relief, which is a program we have. We also have something else called Design for Sustainability. And through that program, we recently redesigned the power supply on new printer models to optimize energy output and reduce energy consumption by 14%. Now, when we're talking to customers and partners today, one of the main concerns they have, of course, on top of inflation and supply chain disruptions, is the cost of energy. right? And so really, truly being able to do something that is good for the environment, but also actually directly responding to pain points of your customers, which is the rising cost of energy. This is where you really have to demonstrate that you are walking the walk and not talking the talk. And it's something that Xerox has always done with regards to sustainability. And we were even recognized as a leader by your organization in the print industry, and received the Energy Stars Partner of the Year Award for 2022. So all of this to say that it is part of our DNA. When we did the timeline asset that we're going to be releasing soon, we realized there was so much on sustainability alone that we probably need to follow it up with a sustainability dedicated timeline as well. So the first timeline you'll see is all about diversity and inclusion and sustainability and some of the milestones we've hit throughout this legacy and what's next. But then I think we will actually develop one purely on sustainability. It's becoming so important in, how we respond to customer bids, how we compete in the marketplace, and how we're considered in terms of, potential recruits into our company. This is really important for people in the market today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned that Quocirca recognized Xerox as a leader in terms of sustainability. And we're definitely seeing that as well. Like you say, it's much higher on the corporate agenda now. And it's also allows companies like Xerox to attract talent based on how environmentally conscious that company is. So that's definitely something that's a consideration. But it's very much a two-pronged approach, in terms of what a company is doing in terms of reducing their own environmental impact, but also how can a company like Xerox help its customers reduce their environmental impact as well through its products and services and solutions. So, it'll be really interesting to see that if you develop the sustainability asset, because I know that Xerox has been pioneering, that kind of circular economy approach for some time. So, yeah, that would be really great to see. And, we've touched on the iconic global brand equity that Xerox has had for 116 years. And, when you look back at the history of Xerox and, the fact that it has such a strong legacy, what responsibility do you feel in terms of helping to not only maintain that legacy, but also drive innovation forward so that it's relevant with the new generation that's entering the workplace today?
It's a tremendous responsibility, right? Because, having this rich history absolutely gives me the challenge to balance the legacy of innovation in the workplace and all that we did in the past, but also be able to clearly articulate and advance the transformation that we're undergoing today, right? There's transformation in the industry as a whole, and there's transformation in Xerox. So we have to honor the past 116 years, but we also have to pave the way for the next 100. And the next 100 is going to be, we will continue to focus on making work better. It's just work is changing, and we have to change as work changes, right? So inventions like the copier began our legacy, but today we are so much more than that. And there's so much more that is relevant to our customers, right? So we went from inventing the copier to inventing managed print services. For all intents and purposes, we were the first, as a service. But now we've adapted to hybrid work and to digital transformation and information workflows that are managed in the office. And how do we help our customers and help our partners solve their customers' problems by incorporating AI, automation, workflow management into what we're doing? And it's all about efficiency and productivity. So when you think about the copier, 84 years ago, right? And how it solved day-to-day challenges and made people's days so much more efficient and productive, right? By saving time. And then you think about, a print fleet and how it helped companies manage, their print and their carbon footprint and, many of their security and data privacy in such a different way. And now you think about how we are taking data, translating it for you, redacting things for you, taking print, physical, and making it digital. All of this is about making people's lives more productive, so they can have a happier and healthier workday, right, at the end of the day. And customer obsession will drive relevancy. As long as you're listening to your customers' pain points and understanding how you can help solve them and make their day better, then we will continue to be relevant in the marketplace.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on some really interesting points there. We're definitely seeing that, the print industry, really has to adapt to the new workplace, hybrid work, but also print and digital convergence, which is happening as well. So how do print suppliers and their channel drive relevancy for their customers and, like you say, deliver solutions and services outside of traditional print, but also help, manage, security, IT services, and also help drive customer value through, utilizing the cloud and so on. And it's, there's so many adjacencies that, the print industry can really capitalize on. And one thing I wanted to, we touched on it briefly, is really around, innovation. So innovation, we see that as having sort of many areas to focus on. So it's not just the technologies, the actual device, but it's also business models and employee culture, which we've touched on before. But also because we're seeing this new change in terms of the workforce that's entering now, the sort of Generation Z and the millennials, becoming more influential in decision making, and the new technology conditions as well. How do you believe that the services and products you're offering are really resonating with that new generation? I think we believe it's almost 30% of the US population are Generation Z at the moment. So I think there's really some sort of opportunities to change in terms of how you deliver your products and solutions and become a recognized brand across these multi-generations of buyers.
Absolutely. And we rely on your research a lot, and we look at the trends, right? And there's a generational shift happening even in the B2B world in terms of decision makers for IT services and procurement and other things, right? And so, a new brand can build their awareness and their purpose and their mission from scratch, right? Native, a consumer brand, but it was able to build it from scratch. A global iconic brand like ours that has this rich history has the added complexity of all of the history and what it was known for, and also acquisitions along the way. Xerox has made so many acquisitions along the way in order to help diversify its offerings, right? And so there's a part of, managing all of those solutions and companies as Xerox companies, and adding these diverse offerings that we've added into our portfolio, so that we can focus on ensuring that we're not known as a copier company or a print company, but that we're known as a technology company, right? That we're known as solving problems for customers. And, it's an interesting opportunity and challenge at the same time with the younger generation, because we have this opportunity in front of us that we can shape what they know us for. They don't necessarily have the baggage of what we were known for before, but then it's important that we get the message across with peer reviews, with case studies, and with really, client-centric, demonstrative examples of how we're solving today's work problems. And so that's why we've focused a lot you'll see from a social media perspective and from a media perspective on a lot of the innovation that's happening at Xerox, whether it be AI, RPA, Workflow Central, Connect Key, all of this is innovation, and it's, innovation throughout the whole industry of tech.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing, and that's quite interesting. I think generally in the B2B space is, there are lots of, legacy companies, not just in the print sector, but in other industries as well. And they have the same challenges in terms of how are they going to connect with the Generation Z consumers and, workers that are coming into the workplace. And, what we see potentially as an opportunity for companies in the print industry is to potentially cultivate this kind of new customer relationships and broader ecosystems by partnering with more digital first brands. So, as you mentioned that, typically a Generation Z person may not have the awareness of Xerox's legacy, but I guess is the opportunity for Xerox to have a different connection with those customers and, potentially be seen, as you mentioned, as a technology company. And, in the same way that they would view an Amazon or a Google, even though Xerox doesn't have a consumer business, I think there's a lot of B2C marketing tactics that can be used for digital natives, which it sounds if you're doing already through your social media and marketing campaigns.
Yeah. And, there is a consumerization happening, right, in marketing, regardless of whether you're a B2C or a B2B company, because at the end of the day, even all of our target customers who are, B2B IT decision makers still have this, very personalized digital, experience in their own lives when they're procuring their personal equipment or services or other things. So, we do a lot of persona building and personalized marketing to those personas, right? There are different ways that you can consumerize your brand and still stay true to a B2B operating model. And I think that that's what's really important to keeping your brand fresh and relevant with a younger generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I wanted to move on to talk a bit about the partner ecosystem, because Xerox has, again, a strong history of broad and very diverse partner ecosystem in terms of your dealers. And I think you can tell us a bit about the different types of dealers you work with. But how is Xerox really focusing on supporting their businesses and also helping them evolve with the markets that they're serving?
Sure. So partners are an extension of our brand, an extension of our sales force, really, because they're, we're very clear about rules of engagement in certain markets. There are certain markets that are partner-led, certain segments that are partner-led, and then there are others where we may have a direct sales force. But at the end of the day, it's all about having a customer-centric approach, because the more we understand the end user and the needs of companies, the more that we can help our partners to be able to solve those needs the same way that we are, right? So we have different partner communities, as you mentioned. We have some partner communities that are mono-branded, only focus on Xerox. We have others that are multi-brand that, either combine our technology with that of other partners. We have VARs, we have IT resellers, we have GC or graphic communication focused partners. So we have communities for each of those partners, and it's about listening to them and engaging them and giving them the tools that actually help them grow their business. So we have Premier Partner Program, for example, which is for our, production focused or GC community. We just had an event in the UK where we listened to them. We tried to understand, and that's where we got some of the insights about energy and how top of mind it was in terms of costs for those partners. We have partner advisory boards where we listen. And one of the things they're telling us is that they want more training and enablement on how to sell solutions and services better, right? And they see Xerox as an opportunity to help them along that journey. So our portals help them with that kind of training, the same way we're taking our own sales force on this journey of being able to sell solutions. We're allowing our partners to be able to come on that journey with us and enabling them to do it better. One of the examples we have of how we enabled them is our Xerox personalized application builder, where Xerox partners can offer very sophisticated levels of customization to automate workflow requirements for their customers. And it provides unlimited opportunities to streamline processes and make their customers more productive. Another example is Workflow Central. That was conceived before the pandemic, but became really relevant during the pandemic and is now ready for a post-pandemic changed world where, we allow our partners to be able to have an ecosystem of apps through ConnectKey, right? And they can build tools and monetize services based on these digital clicks, and they're no longer only beholden to the page volumes as their monetization source, right? So it's really about allowing our partners to manage those workflows the same way that we may manage those workflows in some of the larger enterprise accounts that we service directly.
Yeah, and I think it's all around, like you say, that move from the page volumes to digital service clicks. And that's a really interesting evolution in terms of how we're seeing, managed services develop in the print industry. So, and, I think, as the OEMs like Xerox are having to adapt and reposition their businesses, and the channel has to do that too. So, it's great to hear how Xerox is supporting its channel there. I wanted to move on to sort of really understand, we spoke a bit earlier around employee culture at Xerox, and I just really wanted to hear a bit more about your personal experience and how you believe companies can continue to support and empower their own employees.
Yeah, after 19 years of the company, when I got the call from a recruiter and signed an NDA and was revealed that it was Xerox that was interested, it's interesting because working in the center of so many brands, you start to associate them with different things. And for Xerox, there was always respect, innovation, diversity, inclusion. These were core in terms of what I associated with them based on the culture they built and how their people interacted with me as a partner in the IT world. And so, my own onboarding experience was really interesting because throughout the interview process, I asked questions about the culture, about, transformation, about change, about, continuous improvement, about real, true dedication to diversity and inclusion, not just saying it, and I have my own passion projects. I've, never had the opportunity to work for a woman in my 22-year history in technology. And so I always felt a personal responsibility to be an example for other women who were trying to grow their careers in tech and become leaders in tech, and talk about how you can manage family and work life and all of the other things that come into play as you grow in your career. And so I do have my own, mentoring and blogging that I do on the side. And I asked about it, and every single person in the interview process was like, that's great. You have, full reign to continue your passion projects, and actually gave me opportunities here since I joined to mentor more people, to be an executive sponsor for employee resource groups. So there is really an opportunity here to challenge the status quo and break the bias and talk about things freely. And I really enjoy that about the culture. And I think that empowers people, inspires people, and really, at the end of the day, retains people, right? We also have leadership development programs. I'm now the sponsor for Xerox Leadership Association, which is an employee resource group all about people who want to invest in themselves and becoming better professionals and better leaders in life and in the workplace. So, this culture here, I think, is really unique and really rich and definitely aligned to my own personal values.
That's great. It's just really fascinating to hear about how Xerox supports its employees in that way. And I think, we've seen the Great Resignation probably more in the first half of this year. And that's, we've heard about how that's kind of evolved to quite quitting, and even some employees now, reconsidering their positions, and they're looking for that kind of balance and opportunity to balance their work and their personal life. And it's not something new, but I think that is something that really features quite strongly when anyone's looking for a new position, in terms of how you really described it there. You're looking at Xerox as a way to support you in both your personal and professional life. So it's really great to hear that. And at the same time, Xerox is also offering the technology and the solutions to enable its customers to be more productive and support their own employees. So it's a really interesting sort of employer and employee dynamic that we're seeing changing in all industries, not only in the technology industry. So it's been really interesting to hear how Xerox, is positioning itself, and how, as I say, it's supporting its employees there. So I just really wanted to finish off where we're at, coming to the end of the year, and really wanted to understand what's next for Xerox, and if you have any predictions for 2023 in terms of what you expect to see in the market in general.
Definitely. So I think, what's next for Xerox is we're going to double down on our customer obsession, right? And I really do think that companies that don't have and cultivate a culture of customer obsession, you could see struggle or even cease to exist, right? Because that's where your work around your purpose needs to continue to evolve to meet the needs of your customers. And I think that artificial intelligence will become, democratized as we struggle to improve productivity, even very much in line with the Great Resignation that you were just mentioning, right? We need to automate tasks as much as possible so that people have more tools in their hands and they have more time available to shift to more valuable work, which will make them happier in their workplaces as well, right? And I think, we mentioned AI earlier and automation, and I think that, in the industry, this will just continue to explode in terms of our customers and all companies really seeking to incorporate that technology into, as many facets, as many workflows as possible within their companies. And I think the demographics shifting in our industry, we'll continue to see that playing a part in 2023 and beyond, in terms of that employer-employee relationship, and in terms of supplier and customer relationship as well. Continued focus on sustainability and innovation and diversity and inclusion. And I think that that's where Xerox is really well positioned to win.
No, that's great. It's great to hear how Xerox is planning for the future, and get some insight into how it's building on the strong legacy of its rich brand history. So, really appreciate you taking the time to join me today and give us some insight into how Xerox is transforming its business. So thanks very much again for joining me today, Dina.
Thank you, Louella. It's been my pleasure.
So thank you for joining today's episode of In the Spotlight with Quocirca. For more information, please go to quocirca.com and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.